buenas tardes, bonsoir. I'm Ian Klaus, the Senior Advisor for Global Cities at the U.S. Department of State. And as you'll see, among the things that means, it means I represent a nation state, and nation states at this event don't get seats. We've turned it upside down, and I'm okay with that. I also was the deputy negotiator for the United States for Habitat 3, which means two things as we go into this afternoon plenary session. It means first that I've had my say already, so you shouldn't hear too much from me. It also means that I have an immense amount of respect for what it takes to produce a consensus document. The Paris Action Plan, 50 cities, multiple institutions. A great degree of praise is due to city halls, to their leadership, to their staff, to the OECD, to its leadership and its staff, to the Ford Foundation, its leadership and staff, and other supporting institutions. This is not an easy thing to do. A moderator or a chair, even without a seat, I think should be a little bit like a football referee. You'll see me, but hopefully you won't hear from me. And as you'll see, as it is right now already, and the crowd will grow, we have something like 2 football squads on the stage worthy of people who need to comment. So if it gets boring, I'm just going to divide them up between the rapid bus transit people and the bike lanes people and let them have at it. You know, in the late 17th and 18th and 19th century in Berlin and other places, they had these things called Wunderkammers, these cabinets of curiosities, right? Stuffed full of things from all over the world. Leaves, maps, books, rocks, stuffed animals. Fearing that lunch might have made some of us tired, we have for you an exciting Wunderkammer of the urban on the stage today. So wake up, everything you might want to know about, every continent you might want to know about, and their cities is here for the next 70 to 90 minutes. You want education? It's up here. You want climate-friendly infrastructure? It's here. Paris, Genoa, Cape Town, Medellin? Here. Santa Fe, Stockholm, Madrid, and of course Paris is here. They're the champion mayors of the Paris Action Plan, so have some fun for the remaining time. Now don't worry, like any good cabinet, there is order. And that order goes like this. There will be 3 main but very short speeches from the leadership of the Ford Foundation, from the leadership of the OECD, and from the ambassador to the US mission at the OECD. We will then hear from the mayors, each of them, each champion mayor, according to one of the 4 pillars of the Paris Action Plan. They'll be grouped, so there'll be a lot of coming and going, but we're urbanists, so we should be okay with that. With that, let's get started. What would a Wunderkammer of the urban be without the Ford Foundation? Indeed, a Wunderkammer of equity, of justice. It's my pleasure to introduce Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ian. Good afternoon. This is the moment when we sometimes get a little sleepy, but there's no reason for sleep because you've got an exciting lineup, and I've been asked to give some brief remarks to help frame this afternoon's discussion. And for me, at the Ford Foundation, when we think about inclusive cities, we start by asking the question, what is inclusive urban growth? I believe, above all else, it means this. We put people first, not the buildings, the cars, the bikes, the parking garages, and the water systems, but the people at the beating heart of our cities, the people who breathe energy, creativity, entrepreneurial spirit, the arts and culture into our civic space. Let me channel my favorite urbanist, Jane Jacobs, and quote her. Jane Jacobs said, "There is no logic that can be superimposed on the city. People make it. and it is up to them, not buildings, that we must fit our plans. So we are meeting in a great, remarkable city, Paris, a powerful example of a place where an inclusive mindset and great leadership are helping us to think about bringing together people of diverse backgrounds and cultures to live, work, and play together. And of course, we are so fortunate to be hosted by the inimitable Mayor Anne Hidalgo. I want to say, too, congratulations to the Mayor, because she has just been elected the chair of the C40, so we'll be looking forward to seeing you in Mexico City next week to launch the Inclusive Climate Action Agenda. So we know that the tremendous size and scope of the inequality challenge means that we must craft solutions at the systemic and structural levels. And so Paris is not alone as a city grappling with inequality. Around the globe, we are seeing the challenges in communities and towns and countries that are devastated by the effects of inequality. And that's why we at the Ford Foundation have partnered with the OECD beginning in 2012 to explore the harmful effects of inequality and to promote the idea of inclusive growth, not just because it's a moral imperative, but because it makes sense. The OECD, I am grateful to you, Angel, and everyone, because the OECD has helped to raise the consciousness and bring the conversation about cities, inclusiveness, to the global stage. And so this afternoon, we will hear about the pillars of the Paris Call for Global Action. We'll hear from mayors who are committed to strengthening participatory democracy and the rights of every individual, creating opportunities for all citizens and improving access to basic services and urban living conditions. We'll see that we're not lacking for innovation and creativity and ingenuity as we seek to solve these challenges. We will hear about how the rules are being rewritten in cities and how at every level mayors are taking the lead to change what's happening in countries. And so I am confident that working together, we will address the issues of inequality. We can and we must and we shall make our world a more just and inclusive place for all. And that's what this afternoon is about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to just say that without the Ford Foundation, the new urban agenda would have looked dramatically different, and the leadership that your organization played for a host of member states was really tremendous. Thank you for that. It does beg the question, as I joke about my absent chair, what the State Department is doing here. And the truth is, Ambassador Yohannes at the OECD is a leader in this space, but cities are admittedly out front. They have started addressing climate change problems years before some nation states did. And the question is now, how do you bring all that together? How do you take the tremendous work cities have done and marry that up with national ministries and international institutions, the so-called international order? And this is why it gives me great pleasure to introduce Angel Gurría, really the mastermind, organizer, mobilizer, and chair behind this effort, because you're the Secretary General of an international organization founded in the wake of World War II, but working with cities. That's exactly the sort of vertical cooperation we're trying to find around the world. So please talk to us about the route forward.
Thank you very much. And first of all, let me say that it's a great pleasure to be moderated by Ian Klaus, who is the personification of the old saying that with the old troopers, that the show must go on. In Quito, he was under the in a forum where there were only 2 or 3 people, including myself, which I was doing the Mexican wave every time he said something. So very few people came in. Slowly they started coming in. And then when there was an audience, then a group of natives, of indigenous groups came in from the Amazonia and something like that, and all started banging their drums. So all that, and he was still going there and going with the, and did a great job, I have to say. It's very admirable. It's been a busy day with some very interesting debates, very interesting ideas to take our work forward. And as you know, the Paris Action Plan focuses on creating the inclusive, resilient cities of tomorrow with equal opportunities for all residents. We've shaped the action plan around 4 core pillars: education, labor markets, housing and the built environment, and public services. And we know it will underpin efforts in all of these areas. Now, the success of the Paris Action Plan will depend on our continued collective efforts. I'm happy to say that the commitment shown here today and the insights that have been put forward are extremely encouraging in this respect. Now, as we turn to the implementation, we're committing to continue our support to the champion mayors who are here today. And let me outline a few specific ways. We'll be working hard at the political level so that the voice of cities is better integrated in the national and international agendas. And that includes also governance efforts like G7 and the G20, not just the multinational organizations or the UN. In addition, we'll be using our analytical expertise to supply mayors with the research, the data, the policy guidance they need to tackle inequalities. We'll also aim to provide targeted support to cities to implement and monitor their inclusive growth actions. And last but not least, we'll be facilitating knowledge sharing and the exchange of best practices, including through thematic policy dialogues. In this last respect, let me underline and say particular thanks to Ambassador Daniel Yohannes of the United States to the OECD. He managed to get the US government to support this with a financial and technical support for the collaborative web platform that will serve our champion mayors. And thank you, Ambassador, and thank you to the State Department. I understand Madam Richardson someplace around here also, so thanks to her too, and to the permanent delegation. So, dear friends, William Shakespeare wrote, "What is the city but the people?" So we depart from this Paris meeting with a concrete commitment and a plan of action to empower citizens the world over and place them at the heart of our local economies. So as we move forward, the inimitable, incombustible, irreplaceable, all starting with I ask you, champion mayors, to count on the OECD, feel comfortable with the OECD. We are here not only to work with you, but also to work for you. We will be your champion. So together we can make, as Darren so aptly put it, we can make inclusive growth a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. And you do a wonderful Mexican wave. We might break it out later this evening if the cocktail party gets going. I learned a lesson in Quito from the mayor of Birmingham as well as the mayor of Santa Monica, who's here. And that lesson was, you can't tell mayors what to do. That's the beauty of mayors. That's the terror of moderating a panel full of mayors. And so I will shortly read all of our mayors in the crowd the riot act about their sessions, but I shouldn't do that before I say, Madam Mayor, this is your city, this is your house, Speak as long as you want.
Merci beaucoup, merci. C'est un plaisir de se retrouver là. Et je veux à nouveau remercier le secrétaire général de l'OCDE, cher Angel, de nous permettre de nous retrouver et de porter une vision aussi ambitieuse et innovante à la tête d'une grande organisation internationale. C'est indispensable pour nous les maires de pouvoir compter sur un soutien comme le vôtre. Et bien sûr à Darren, je voudrais aussi lui dire merci et merci de la confiance et de l'engagement de la Fondation Ford. Merci à mes collègues, les 25 champions maires avec lesquels nous partageons cette très très belle aventure. Mais je veux vous dire, nous les maires, nous sommes bien sûr pragmatiques, engagés auprès de nos villes. Nous savons qu'il faut des politiques globales, inclusives, que les questions de développement durable, de développement social, d'innovation technologique ou d'innovation sociale sont en fait toutes liées. Mais vous nous avez permis, grâce au travail engagé par vous à l'OCDE, grâce au travail engagé avec la Fondation Ford, vous nous avez permis de mettre des mots sur cette démarche et sur le fait que nous rassemblons nos agendas. C'est très très important parce que chaque maire peut être un peu isolé sur son territoire, à essayer de faire du mieux qu'il peut pour le développement de son territoire, pour apporter des services aux populations de ce territoire. Le fait de pouvoir échanger entre nous, ce que nous faisons très souvent, puisque la plupart des maires ici présents participent aux différents réseaux de maires, c'était déjà un premier pas. Nous avons appris dans le temps à échanger nos expériences et à nous nourrir des expériences des uns des autres et de fait à nous renforcer, à nous conforter et à avoir cette vision globale qui est aujourd'hui la nôtre et que nous partageons avec vous, grandes organisations qui agissent aussi à l'échelle globale. Mais il nous fallait un élément supplémentaire. Au-delà de ces réseaux qui nous permettent des échanges, des grandes fondations, les grandes institutions comme les vôtres nous permettent d'aller plus vite et de pouvoir élaborer des stratégies très précises qui nous permettent de conjuguer ces différents aspects de la vie de nos villes. Je ne vais pas décrire, bien évidemment, tout le plan de Paris dans cette stratégie globale, parce que on se retrouve sur l'objectif d'éducation, on se retrouve sur les aspects relatifs au marché du travail et notamment le soutien des plus fragiles sur le marché du travail. Je pense aux jeunes de nos quartiers les plus en difficulté. Je ne vais pas développer tout ce que nous faisons, mais on se retrouve dans les questions relatives au logement et à l'environnement urbain, y compris l'espace public, comment l'espace public est vraiment public et pas privé, ou pas simplement réservé à l'usage des voitures. Et bien sûr, nous nous retrouvons aussi dans l'objectif relatif aux infrastructures et aux services publics. Mais permettez-moi juste de dire et de mettre en relation avec le plan de ces villes pour tous travailler avec cette initiative de l'OCDE et ce que nous faisons à Paris. Deux petits exemples très, très brefs. Un premier qui concerne l'inclusion des populations, notamment des quartiers populaires et des jeunes, dans la gouvernance et la compréhension de ce que nous faisons au niveau de la gouvernance de la ville. Nous avons développé un budget participatif avec 5% du budget d'investissement de la ville, ça représente environ 100 millions d'euros par an, qui sont mis à disposition des habitants pour qu'ils puissent définir des projets. Ces projets sont ensuite votés par les habitants et nous, avec l'administration de la ville, nous les mettons en œuvre. Ce projet-là, nous l'avons lancé dès mon arrivée en 2014 et nous nous sommes rendus compte que nous manquions de participation dans les quartiers les plus populaires. Et donc, on a décidé de faire une enveloppe spéciale à l'intérieur de ces 5% du budget d'investissement pour les quartiers populaires, pour qu'il y ait une participation plus forte. Et cette année, le résultat est au rendez-vous. Dans nos quartiers populaires, les habitants ont construit des projets, ont présenté des projets, les ont défendus et les ont fait voter. Ils les ont votés. Idem avec les enfants. Nous avons décidé, pour que la démocratie s'apprenne dès le plus jeune âge, de développer cette démarche innovante et inclusive en proposant aux écoles qu'une partie de ce budget participatif, c'était 10 millions d'euros, soit décidée par les enfants à partir des ateliers conduits avec leurs enseignants, avec nos équipes de la ville de Paris, dans les écoles. Et ils ont présenté des projets sur plein d'aspects. Ça va de la coopération internationale de leur école avec d'autres écoles à la végétalisation ou à des projets solidaires avec d'autres aspects de leur quartier. Et là aussi, ça a marché. Je voulais donner cet exemple. Un deuxième exemple très rapidement, j'en ai un peu parlé ce matin, c'est le centre de réfugiés que nous avons construit au nord de Paris, qui accueille depuis la semaine dernière plutôt des hommes seuls qui arrivent et qui vont pouvoir rester entre 5 et 10 jours, pouvoir se reposer, manger, avoir une information claire sur leurs droits. Et pour mettre en œuvre ce centre de réfugiés, nous avons aussi travaillé la participation citoyenne avec le quartier, avec les associations. Ce sont des associations, des ONG qui portent la gestion de ce centre, mais nous avons aussi mobilisé des volontaires de la ville et des volontaires qui sont des bénévoles dans le quartier qui viennent faire fonctionner ce centre. Ça aussi, c'est une expérience que je veux mettre dans le paquet de ces initiatives sur lesquelles nous travaillons et pour lesquelles vous nous donnez beaucoup de force. Et je veux vraiment, au nom de tous les maires, vous en remercier. Merci.
Mayor Hidalgo, I'd like to thank you personally because my wife is having a lovely lunch on Saint-Sulpice right now, and we should thank all of Paris for that and you as its leader. But your remarks also made me think of something else, which is the global challenges with which we've all become familiar through the course of international negotiations over the last 2 years are as such. Economic financing for development, climate change, inclusivity. On all of these issues, we can find examples of city leadership, and that's where we're going to go to on our next panel. But you just touched on something which is also crucial, and I think that we should celebrate cities for doing. Governance and the legitimacy of governance is going to be a crucial issue in the 21st century. The city is a size and a scale at which you can really deliver that, and I think the examples you just provided are wonderful places to start. So thank you for that. And thank everyone on the panel as they move out and we bring our mayors up. So now we move into the policy speed dating section of the session. It may be a little rough, as speed dating can be, but you're going to get a lot of ideas very quickly from around the world. So we're going to start with the first pillar, education. And as such, I'd like to invite up a group of mayors to discuss inclusive education systems and what you will do to promote them. So I would like to introduce Deputy Mayor Marta Higueras from Madrid. I think she was trying to make it. Has she not joined us yet? No. Mayor Esther Alder of Geneva. You're here next to me. Very nice to see you. And Mayor Javier Gonzalez of Santa Fe, right here. And then finally, Deputy Mayor Thomas Fabian of Leipzig. please. So I'm only going to say this once, because after that, as I learned, you can't tell mayors anything. But I have to now say, listen, the international community over the course of the last 24 months set a lot of lofty goals for itself. The Paris Agreement, the New Urban Agenda, Addis Ababa Action, the SDGs. Some people say they're impossible. But I say, if 20-something mayors can get on a panel and state their time limit, nothing is impossible. So I invite our mayors to show us and the world that everything is possible. So please, in 2 minutes, we'd love to hear what's going on in your city in terms of education and how it's going to help deliver on the Paris Action Plan.
Merci. Mesdames et messieurs, chers collègues, je suis très heureuse d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui et de vous présenter les salutations de la ville de Genève. J'aimerais profiter de l'occasion pour remercier l'OCDE et la Fondation Ford d'avoir pris l'initiative de lancer cette campagne pour la croissance inclusive. Le plan d'action de Paris, et merci 1000 fois à Anne Hidalgo pour son engagement, manifeste clairement la volonté des villes de s'engager pour lutter contre les inégalités créées par une mondialisation anarchique. La ville de Genève est particulièrement préoccupée par les inégalités qui touchent les enfants. À Genève, une ville pourtant si riche, ils sont nombreux à vivre dans la pauvreté. Or, les citoyens, ce sont d'abord des enfants, ce sont les adultes de demain, ils sont l'avenir de notre société. Et j'étais très heureuse tout à l'heure de voir tous ces enfants du monde entier qui s'engagent pour les droits de l'enfant. Pour la ville de Genève, il nous paraît très important de promouvoir un système d'éducation inclusif afin que tous aient les mêmes chances et surtout les élèves défavorisés. À Genève, la condition pour la mise en œuvre du plan d'action de Paris sur ce point sont déjà bien en place grâce au développement de politiques publiques favorables à l'enfance. Sachez que depuis 2015, la politique de l'enfance s'est enrichie d'un nouvel axe, à savoir la promotion des droits de l'enfant, et ça fera très plaisir à la jeune Sabrina qui parlait justement du 27e anniversaire de la Convention des Nations Unies pour les droits de l'enfant. Nous voulons vraiment favoriser l'égalité des chances et l'intégration de tous les enfants dans la cité. À l'instar de ce que fait la ville de Paris, nous avons lancé une vingtaine de projets dans le sens de l'intégration, la participation des enfants dans nos politiques, et ces projets ont touché plus de 9000 enfants. Nous avons considéré les enfants comme de véritables interlocuteurs. Ils ont pu nous donner leur opinion, proposer des idées et prendre davantage conscience de leurs droits. Cette expérience est très positive et va tout à fait dans le sens du plan d'action de Paris. Les prochaines années, la ville de Genève a donc l'intention de renforcer encore la construction de la citoyenneté des enfants afin qu'ils puissent grandir en ville dans les meilleures conditions possibles. Nous avons la conviction que le renforcement des droits des enfants est une nécessité pour rendre les villes plus inclusives. Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Deputy Mayor Fabian, please, Leipzig.
Yeah, okay, thank you for having me here. First of all, I would like to describe that we have had very many refugees arriving in the city of Leipzig last year, which meant that we have to enlarge our schools, and we have a concept for the integration of refugees' children into our schools. And earlier on this morning, it has been pointed out that education, providing education, is crucial for social inclusion. I just would like to describe very shortly one project that we have been building on in the last few years. We have social segregation in our city as well. We have areas where we have a lot of poor people living, many social problems, and we know that with the development of the educational infrastructure, we can also develop parts of the cities. That means that in those areas which are in need, we do not only develop the public spaces like streets and other park areas, but we're going to build new secondary schools. We're not just going to build new schools, but we have a concept developed with the neighborhoods. These are going to be so-called community schools with new ideas, which means that they are open to community workers, to neighborhood organizations, which will find rooms in these schools, so that we have school buildings that are not just schools, but that they are kind of community centers with strong cooperation with the local library and local organizations. That was less than 2 minutes, wasn't it?
This is remarkable. I feel like I have a great deal of authority, but I think instead I just have discipline.
I usually can talk for hours on end.
we will have the opportunity hopefully later this evening. For now, Mayor Gonzalez of Santa Fe, please give us your perspective.
Thank you very much. I want to begin by thanking the Ambassador very much for your leadership here with OECD and representing America so well. Receiving the invitation from Angel and Darren at the Ford Foundation to become a champion mayor was a call to action for myself. I represent a community, Santa Fe, New Mexico, that's historic. More than 400 years, we've been a multicultural community, beginning with the indigenous cultures. And what's incredible and awesome about our community is that you see that 400 years in our buildings, you taste it in our food, and most importantly, you see it in the people that live there. But for the incredible multiculturalism of Santa Fe, we've seen inequality and further separation of these cultures that have been critical to the success of the past. So there are specific things that we've launched since March to begin to close the divide. And what I will say about mayors, whether you're in the United States or any part of the world, there are three critical roles that you play. You set the tone for your community, you become the great convener, and you drive collaboration, so it's not always about bringing new resources to the table, but bringing smarter ways of delivering business. We sat down and we brought more than 400 community organizations together and focused on a Birth to Career initiative that defined how we would make sure that we increase birth rates for our children, how we ensured that our kids were kindergarten ready, that they were reading at third grade levels. Just recently, New Mexico was ranked last in children well-being. 76% of our third graders are not reading at third grade reading levels. Prison futurists look to those third grade reading levels to determine the number of beds that they need. So rather than creating birth to prison pipelines, we're focused on trying to establish stronger careers. So bringing in mentorship into the community and making sure that kids have access to skill sets in the employment area long before they graduate from high school has been a critical component that we wanted to deal with. We have a lot of disconnected youth. More than 2,400 kids between the ages of 19 and 24 are neither working nor are they in school. So how we develop programs to bring them back in to allow them to become fully participatory is an area that we've been investing money. More specifically, we're focusing on building a community that everyone can participate in. We've heard much of those programs through housing and infrastructure, making sure that we seek out innovative ways to focus and target resources on the most vulnerable. For example, we launched the MIHO program, Mobile Integrated Health Office. Right now we have 160 firefighters. They responded to 25 fires last year, but 13,000 EMS calls. The Mobile Integrated Health Office is focused on taking firefighters, expanding their work skills to identify needs in the areas of mental and behavioral health, and connect people to the health system prior to them calling 911. The other areas we developed the Verde Fund. The Verde Fund is an area that focuses on mitigating the threats of climate change on people living in poverty. We know that people living in poverty are going to pay a disproportionate share of the costs that are associated with climate change. So we're taking resources and we're doing things like building out bike share programs and car share programs so that people in in highly vulnerable communities or poor communities can have access to mobility when they need to get to work, or teaching workforce skills that are critical. The final area is developing, we most recently developed a homework diner. 30% of our children are classified as being persistently hungry. So we have a diner that allows for our children to come to eat a free meal, but the key is they have to come with their family members and they have to come with their homework. And that's where the community gets there, and we have tutors that are ready to work with them, and we have community advocates that are ready to work with the families so that they're connected to the resources of the community so they can overcome some of their most pressing issues. So there are action items that we can do daily. All of this was done without increasing the city's budget. It was done by setting the tone, daring the community to dream big and setting those aspirational goals, and as a mayor, having to follow up and call and hold people accountable for delivering on the issues of programs that actually reduce inequality in our community. Thank you.
The OECD team that's running this event includes Marissa, who's standing here with a red flag, and she waves it at folks if they go overtime. And this was a stupendous panel, and she's about to wave that at me because of what I'm about to do. But here are the terms. If whatever mayor selected can promise to answer in 30 seconds, and if an individual is interested in asking a question without a microphone and identifies one mayor to whom they want to have a follow-up question, and the hand goes up in the next 15 seconds, we can open it up for a quick flash question and answer. Anybody got anything? All right, we'll prepare for the next round then. Thank you, guys. Pillar 2, labor markets. People already know who they are. I know some of these folks, and there's no way this isn't going to be a fascinating set of comments. So please welcome Mayor Karin Vangard of Stockholm, Mayor Luis Meya of Kyoto, and Mayor Ahmed Aboutaleb of Rotterdam. So, Mr. Mayor, let's start with you quickly. Last night I heard you make a very interesting observation with regards to the steps that cities might have to take to advance their interests and the interests of their people, even if they're not consistent with their national government or the international structure. I invite you to comment to any degree you want to on how to build more inclusive labor markets, but that was quite provocative, and feel free to go further down that route in the context of labor as well.
Yeah. Well, so is it working? Do you allow me? Does it work? Give a microphone to an engineer, it doesn't work. Who knows where Rotterdam is? Who knows where Brussels is? Well, we are north of Brussels. No, just I would like to comment on two issues. The labor market issue in the Northwest European countries is really focusing not only in the Netherlands, but on vocational training. We have a lot of industry. The Port of Rotterdam has more than 100,000 jobs in the industry. So we need a lot of technicians, people with brains and brilliant hands to do the work. So we focus a lot of engineering on the process industry. So that's why 2 years ago when I received the CEO of the Rabobank, one of the biggest banks in the world, he came to the City Hall just to say hello and ask me when we finish, what can I do for the city? Do you know, this is a brilliant question from a banker to a mayor. What can I do for the city? And I asked him, I need every year 12,000 positions for internships. People that are studying at the vocational training schools in the US known as community schools and would like to give them a training position because without an internship in the Netherlands, you never can get your diploma. And then he said to me, well, I will think about that. A couple of weeks later, he called me, he said, next to my job as CEO of the bank, this is my second more important job. So he's now working for the city as ambassador to start with his clients, with the bank, to more or less force them to grant these positions. And he asked me, what is the ratio, Mayor? I said to him, I use for the civil servants 1 position on 20 workers. So on every 20 workers, 1 intern position. And he's now working to do that. Whatever his speeches in the city, he said, I have a big request from the mayor. I need internships for vulnerable young students. Very important one. The other one is, again, we have high technical positions in the board, but we didn't have so far a very interesting simulation plant for young people to exercise. Can you imagine what it is to build a simulation refinery? Well, we are working to build such a one. And the funny thing is, I'm not preaching for my city, but initiative coming from the industry, supported by the national government, and supported by the other industries, and supported by the city of Rotterdam. It will cost a couple of millions euros, and is now under construction. So enough simulation capacity, together with internships in the industry, that will give a boost for really more than 20,000, that's what I'm expecting, next 5 years, to help young vulnerable people in concrete jobs, in the port, in the refineries, and in the process industry. A very concrete thing to work on.
No, this session is about action and concrete steps, and it's a fabulous example. Congratulations. Madam Mayor, I haven't had my fika today, or my fika, but I think we all could use a little dose of Stockholm sort of wisdom. Please.
Thank you. And dear friends, I'm here to share you 10 short points how Stockholm is implementing the Paris Action Plan, especially concerning education, but also in relation to the labor market. To make informed political decisions in this line of work, we are using research and data provided by our Commission for Socially Sustainable Stockholm. And these are our 10 priorities based on this. 1. Schools hold the greatest potential to equip children with the capacity to transcend the social constraints of their family background. We therefore implement a powerful resource allocation model according to which financial resources are distributed based on individual needs and social backgrounds. 2. A good start in life is extremely important. Therefore, we have recently introduced a right to full-time preschool for all children. 3. To increase enrollment rate in preschool among newly arrived children, we have introduced introductory preschools as a means of transition to ordinary preschools. 4. A modern society, people with less education are very vulnerable. It is therefore essential that we provide opportunities for people to improve their education status. 5. In Stockholm, we are increasing investment in adult education with a special focus on the less trained. 6. Adult education should facilitate the transition to work. Newly arrived adults are therefore offered the opportunity to learn the world language Swedish and learn a trade at the same time. 7. The city is increasingly employing people who are far from the labor market. So far, during 2 years, 1,500 persons have left welfare dependency for work. 8. We are also employing persons with minor disabilities in preschool and elderly care to help them enter the labor market. 9. To create an inclusive growth, it is essential that we can offer the low-skilled persons quality work. Again, the city as an employer is a great importance. And 10, last but not least, to increase and secure competence in city operations, we are investing 9.6 million euro in a special training fund. It can, for example, be used to upgrade nannies into preschool, to become preschool teacher, etc. Thank you.
I thought there was no chance when I saw the 10 points. No. Mayor, please.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Un saludo muy cariñoso de Quillota, Chile. Y contarles que voy a presentar dos experiencias en materia laboral, pero primero decirles que detrás de nuestro proyecto hay una filosofía. El ser humano, lo más importante. Segundo, ¿cuál es el objetivo fundamental de todo proyecto humanista? La felicidad de las personas. Por lo tanto, ponemos el énfasis en el bienestar subjetivo o la felicidad. ¿Cómo se logra desde un gobierno local, desde un municipio, alcanzar ese bienestar subjetivo? Estudiando el tema con neurólogos, con médicos, con investigadores, llegamos a la conclusión de que en el escenario que vive hoy día el mundo y que vive también Quillota y Chile, hay que hacer una transformación cultural, pasar de la competencia a la colaboración. El ser humano es más feliz cuando colabora y es menos feliz y tiene malestar cuando se le obliga a competir. En ese escenario es que les quiero mostrar dos proyectos relacionados con el empleo. Uno, plan de profesionales jóvenes. Un drama en Chile, un dolor humano identificado en nuestra comunidad. El 70% de los alumnos en las universidades chilenas son primera generación de estudiantes universitarios. Terminan su carrera llenos de esperanza y cuando van a buscar trabajo, dos problemas. Uno, le piden experiencia y están recién titulados. Pero el mayor, que tiene que ver con la falta de inclusión social, no tienen contactos. Son primeros profesionales de una familia de escasos recursos. ¿Qué creamos? Con apoyo del sector privado, un plan que significa contratarlos por 8 meses, media jornada, y así le damos experiencia y contactos. Ha sido una maravilla, en pocos meses se van del municipio, encuentran trabajo y agradecidos eternamente. Y el segundo, plan de oportunidades para la vida. Otro problema de inclusión, otro dolor humano, los que salen de la cárcel. ¿Cómo acceden a volver a reintegrarse a la sociedad? ¿Cómo lo hicimos? Este plan consiste en trabajar con ellos 6 meses antes de que cumplan condena. Ubicamos a la familia, nos preocupamos que tengan una cama donde dormir cuando salen de la cárcel, les damos trabajo por 3 meses y los seguimos apoyando durante 1 año con mercadería para que no les falte. Conclusión, el 90% de los que han participado en este programa no vuelven a reincidir, el 90%. Chile lo ha tomado a partir de esta experiencia local como una política nacional. Por eso creemos en el ser humano, creemos en su felicidad y creemos en la espiritualidad como un ingrediente importante en el desarrollo de las comunas. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, alcalde. This is tremendous. If mayors ran the global train system, it would be inclusive, they would be green, and the trains would arrive on time. Please thank the panelists and move on to the next section. The third pillar of the Paris Action Plan, housing and urban environments. You heard from her this morning, but you can't hear enough. Please welcome Mayor Patricia de Lille from Cape Town, from Medellin, Mayor Federico Gutierrez, from Brussels, Mayor Yvan Mayeur, and from Porto, Portugal, Mayor Rui Moreira. Let me start on my right. Madam Mayor, please. What are you guys doing in Cape Town to build more inclusive housing and built environments?
Well, We certainly have done a lot so far. We have got 2 big housing projects that we've completed with solar heater panels. We have so far fitted 45,000. We are planning to have 116,000 by 2020. We also want to change our energy mix, and we started to bring renewables into our energy mix, and we want to have 20% of our energy mix by 2020 to be renewables. But last year in Paris, I announced that we'll be buying our first electric buses. We have now bought the first 10 electric buses, and together with that, in the contract, part of the buses will be assembled and built in Cape Town. So it's going to create jobs, it's going to train more young people with some skills. And so we're very excited about our first electric buses to help us with our reduction of carbon emissions. But we've also been retrofitting 40,000 homes that were built without ceilings. And by insulating the houses and waterproofing the houses, many more people, I mean, they're saving a lot on energy cost. And so we are in the first phase of that, first 8,000 houses that we have done. And we've been able to see a reduction of at least 5,600 tons of carbon per annum. And we will continue to do that to help poorer people that spend a lot of money on heating. And so I would like to also see, and I'm sitting here thinking and hearing what all the mayors have done in 2 minutes. I wonder if you bring all the national leaders here, will they be able to tell us in 2 minutes what they've done? Also, in terms of density, we want to build houses closer to where people live and work. And so we have adopted a transport orientation development strategy, meaning that we will shorten the distances, we will reduce the amount of hours in travel, and also reduce the amount of cost of traveling, especially for poor people. Thank you.
Surely it was enough that I didn't have a chair. We also didn't have to take on the national government. But you raise a good point. Undoubtedly in the United States and elsewhere, cities, provinces, and states are at the forefront of some of our most pressing global challenges. Mayor Brussels, please.
Voilà, moi je parlerai plutôt d'abord de logement. Nous sommes à Bruxelles dans une situation de croissance démographique très importante, ce qui signifie que nous devons pouvoir offrir à la population de nouveaux logements, mais aussi de nouveaux équipements collectifs. Cette croissance de population, elle est surtout le fait de 2 catégories, au fond, assez antagonistes sur le plan social, c'est-à-dire d'abord une population pauvre, ensuite une population de nouveaux arrivants liés au caractère international, capitale européenne et mondiale qu'est Bruxelles aujourd'hui. Et donc pour répondre aux demandes de ces 2 groupes de population qui sont en croissance, il a fallu produire des logements. Évidemment, le secteur privé s'est lui attelé à répondre aux besoins des populations arrivant en vue de servir le caractère international de Bruxelles et institutionnel. Il a fallu donc que le secteur public mobilise ses moyens pour répondre aux besoins des habitants d'origine bruxelloise, quelles que soient d'ailleurs leurs origines, puisqu'il y a plus de 160 nationalités qui vivent sur le territoire de Bruxelles. Et ces logements, nous avons décidé de les construire selon des normes qui sont des normes, d'abord quand il s'agit de rénovation urbaine, qui sont des normes de basse énergie, de basse consommation énergétique, et les nouveaux bâtiments, eux, doivent être nécessairement des bâtiments passifs. C'est la règle qui est imposée par la ville pour ses propres constructions, mais qui maintenant va être aussi imposée aux constructions privées. Il a fallu aussi recycler un parc très important de bureaux et transformer ces bureaux en logements. Ça aussi, c'est une contrainte qui a été mise sur le secteur privé, qui au fond a constaté aujourd'hui qu'il faisait plus de recettes avec la construction de logements qu'avec la construction de bureaux. Pourquoi? Parce que la situation est telle, la demande est telle, que la construction de logements est aujourd'hui le secteur porteur en matière immobilière. À côté de ça, évidemment, on ne peut pas reproduire les erreurs qui ont été commises avant nous dans les années 70-80, c'est-à-dire construire des ghettos de logements sans équipement collectif, sans équipement qui accompagne les populations. Et donc nous avons évidemment l'obligation, à côté de cela, de construire des crèches, des écoles, des lieux sportifs, des commerces, pour accompagner les lieux de vie des populations. Là aussi, les normes de production de ces espaces-là doivent être conformes aux nouvelles normes énergétiques. En fait, nous avons constaté pour la ville de Bruxelles que si nous suivons un rythme de croisière, nous atteindrons en 2030 les objectifs de la COP21. Mais nous avons décidé d'aller plus loin, de porter un cran plus loin et d'imposer que nous soyons plus performants que ce qui est prévu par la COP21. Et c'est ainsi que, notamment, pour améliorer la qualité de l'air, la qualité de l'espace public, nous avons décidé aussi de créer à proximité de chaque lieu de vie, à moins de 10 minutes à pied, un espace verdurisé, un parc, un pocket park, le cas échéant, un petit parc, ou des espaces publics qui sont rendus à la population au travers donc de piétonisation, de zones qui sont piétonisées. Ainsi, en jouant évidemment sur l'effet que cela a sur la mobilité, sur le transport, sur le nombre de voitures qui rentrent en ville, nous voulons atteindre une performance qui va plus loin que les objectifs fixés par la COP21. C'est sur ces deux éléments-là qui sont donc le logement, la construction d'immobilier et l'espace public, sans jouer directement sur la mobilité, que la ville de Bruxelles pense atteindre les objectifs, et même mieux que les objectifs de la COP21.
It's noted in the Paris Action Plan, it was noted by Michael Berkowitz this morning, but the overlap between stuff like the Paris Agreement, an accord like the Paris Agreement, and issues of inequality, for instance, the way in which so many agendas are tied into the same place. I think you just gave a great example of how you can achieve multiple goals at the same time. Thank you. Amazing stuff is happening in Porto. I read about it all the time. Please share with us.
Thank you. You probably read in the monocle what we have been doing regarding gentrification. I imagine that's what you read. So what is the situation when we inherited the city? We had been going through a long crisis. And basically, the middle class that lived in the center of the city of Porto, they lost all their income. And traditionally, the previous mayor did what is normal in cities. We built city dwellings in the outskirts and we moved them there. We found out this is a terrible mess because, first of all, we opened a new territory in the middle of the city. Tourism started arriving, and they found that suddenly there was this whole territory to be conquered, and there were no residents. So what we think is we need the residents to stay in the city, in the inner city, which is now very attractive for tourism, because tourists, they don't want to see tourists. They want to see the people who lived in the city, and our people, they should be able to benefit from the tourist activity, not only the sector that deals with the property. So what we did is we started rebuilding our own houses, which the municipality had, but more than that, we used an old law which enabled us to exercise the right of option on transactions of property. So what we are doing is whenever there is a transaction, we evaluate, we have a committee. If we think it's a good lodgement for the people of the city, we buy it, we refurbish it, and we put it out in social rent. But we did more than that. We found out that some of the people that lost their homes, they were buying or they were renting, were people that had short-term crisis. Because the husband or the wife lost the job, they were unable to pay to the bank loans, or they were unable to pay the rents, and they left. So what we did is we built a sort of insurance built by the municipality where people can, up to 1 year, in special cases, renew it for the second year, to receive a subsidy from the town hall to pay up to 75% of the rent or the mortgage costs. And this enables them really to stay in the same house, stay in the same neighborhood. I heard about Jane Jacobs. We thought about it. We thought about Jane Jacobs when we did that. That should be the name of the fund. And that's basically what we are doing. One last word. We should have a club. I heard this morning something I did not like. Mayors that do not want Olympic Games in their cities. Please raise your hand. I don't want. We have different things to do. We have to concentrate on our population, on the needs of our population before we go for concrete. Thank you.
Wake them up, wake them up. Thank you all. And final pillar of the Paris Action Plan, infrastructure and public services that are climate friendly, accessible, and sustainable. Mayors are already coming too. Fantastic. Please welcome the Mayor of Athens, Mayor Giorgos Kaminis, the Mayor of Genoa, Marco Doria, the Mayor of Curridabat, Mayor Edgar Mora Alta Mirano. Oh, we have multiple mayors. And Mayor of Santa Monica, Mayor Vasquez, who will put me in my place if anything goes astray, and took the seat so that he could do so. Now, as I said, all of the future hope of humanity rests upon us staying on schedule if we're going to provide the example I laid out at the beginning. So you can see the clock below. I ask you to keep an eye out for Marissa and her red flag. And a final, my apologies, the Deputy Mayor of Tel Aviv, Mayor Mehereta Baruch Ron. Oh. Who am I missing? There you go. Okay, so why don't we start with Athens, please. Making public surfaces infrastructure more accessible, climate friendly, and sustainable.
Well, thank you. Athens was one of the first signatories of the Inclusive Growth in Cities Initiative, and we are proud about that. And now we are ready to support the next step. It's the Paris Action Plan. In our opinion, 4 conditions have to be fulfilled. First of all, it's important to assure that we have integrated approaches, then that we have multi-level governance systems. In my case, in my country, it's a very important problem. We cannot act as we should like to act because, problems and important problems, they do not recognize administrative boundaries. So we have to work hard on that. And of course, inclusiveness. In the case of Athens, being inclusive, it's of the utmost importance. And now we have an aggravated situation with the refugee problem. And assure civic participation, the participation of citizens. Now, coming to our special topic on access to infrastructure and public services, the first thing I would like to point out is that we have to develop a resilience strategy. Resilience strategy that at the same time must be, as I said, an integrated strategy. We are working nowadays against the effects of climate change. First of all, trying to mitigate some effects, going to public schools, creating green roofs, or upgrading the energy status, energy upgrading of our municipal buildings. And dealing with heat waves, that's a very important problem in Athens during the summer. We have many people, old people, in poor neighborhoods, some people dying because of the heat waves. Now we have created, with the help of our Polytechnic School, a device and application for mobile phones. Through satellites, we can have a clear picture of the temperature in every neighborhood. We know where old people are. We get them connected with their mobile phones. So whenever we know that we will have a heat wave, we immediately send messages, what to do, where to go, to which parks, to which buildings, so that they can pass their day there. And of course, concerning, again, poor neighborhoods, we have upgraded our medical centers and municipal medical centers to multifunctional municipal services, offering integrated social services to all of our citizens. Well, these are some aspects. Thank you for your patience.
It is increasingly unfair how clear how unfair the 2-minute rule is. Yeah. Curridabat.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm going to speak in Spanish from now. Esto que acabamos de escuchar de todos los alcaldes, agregado, estoy seguro que es la agenda que todos tenemos durante un día de trabajo. Es decir, no dejamos de pensar en alternativas para mejorar la calidad de vida de las personas. Nosotros trabajamos en un esquema de proximidad, de inmediatez. Es decir, los ciudadanos esperan que de las ciudades aparezcan soluciones diariamente, rápidamente, de la manera más barata posible, y que eso además implique una mejoría sustantiva. Además tenemos que trabajar en 4 escalas de territorio. Me parece muy importante mencionar esto. No debemos de olvidar que nuestro trabajo nace de la célula más pequeña, la célula social más pequeña, que vendría a ser el barrio, el conjunto de familias. Cada ciudad ciertamente es una cápsula, pero también forma parte de una subregión, y una subregión forma parte de una región metropolitana, y este es el área de trabajo que tenemos. Yo fundamentalmente voy a relatar la historia de cómo hemos venido haciendo inclusiva alguna parte de la infraestructura, partiendo de la base de nuestra capacidad de investigación. Hicimos un experimento para saber cuál era la movilidad real de personas con problemas de movilidad. De manera muy barata, usando una tecnología que hicimos en casa, pudimos medir la ruta, la distancia, el tiempo de desplazamiento, las vibraciones durante el desplazamiento, los ángulos que tenían que hacer, la temperatura y la calidad del aire de las personas en sillas de ruedas. Y cuando nos dimos cuenta de que estas personas en mi ciudad, en Curridabat, hacen de promedio 3 veces más esfuerzo que alguien que camina para recorrer 100 metros, nos dimos cuenta que habíamos descubierto una nueva área de trabajo. Lo que siguió fue que en una aplicación de autorreporte que tenemos para que los vecinos nos reporten problemas, introdujimos un botón de obstáculos en acera, sidewalk, y fue un éxito. Es decir, fue más recurrido ese botón que los huecos en la calle. Lo que siguió fue que creamos una patrulla peatonal, es decir, personas en sillas de ruedas que ahora tenían un nombramiento municipal para chequear y verificar cuál era el estado de estos obstáculos, cuál era la posibilidad de trasladarse. Durante años habíamos venido haciendo lo que la ley nos pedía, que era fundamentalmente poner rampas en las esquinas, y nos dimos cuenta que eso era absolutamente insuficiente. A partir de la data que hemos recogido y de las historias, del storytelling de estas personas, hemos podido alocar o trasladar $1 millón, que es un 5% de nuestro presupuesto, de las calles a las aceras, lo cual permite creer y tener esperanza de que en el futuro vamos a tener una ciudad de un país en vías de desarrollo que está pensando en las personas más necesitadas.
Gracias, alcalde. Mayor Vasquez won re-election less than 2 weeks ago. Congratulations, and I'll congratulate you twice over if you stay to time.
I will do my best. Thank you. Yeah, actually, the mayor who spoke earlier from Paris, Ana Hidalgo, I met her the first time actually last year here, and I kind of joked with her. I said, because I understand she, and I told her, I said, how did a person from Madrid get elected in Paris? And she looked at me and said, how does a Mexicano get elected in Santa Monica? And I was actually the first ever in Santa Monica. But real quickly, moving on the energy crisis, for us, it's more about water, mobility. In Santa Monica, we set a goal for 2020 to be self-sufficient in terms of water. In California, there's always the fight between the northern and the south. And right now, we are able to whittle it down to about 25% of the water that we need, we actually import. But hopefully by 2020, we will able to, not only through capturing our urban runoff, but also building more storage facilities in the city, be able to be self-sufficient and not be able to rely or have to rely on importing any water into the city. And that's going to be major for us. The other big issue is as we look at closing the gap in terms of the digital divide, about 25 years ago, our IT person had the vision of every time we were cutting through our neighborhoods, especially our boulevards, they were laying down fiber. So now the whole city, at least the main drags, all the boulevards are fiber prepared. So there's free Wi-Fi for a lot of the businesses that want to tap into it and residents. And as it turns out, many of the businesses that were using Verizon and were being charged actually more than they're paying the city of Santa Monica actually have switched. And as a result of it, it actually has generated about $2 million into our coffers above and beyond providing the service to our business community. And as a result, Verizon, who used to be one of the biggest carriers in the city, is actually went out of business in terms of that product and now is doing strictly cellular phones. So those are two short ones I'd like to share with you. And there's several other things we're doing as being one of the most sustainable cities in Santa Monica.
Mayors and deputy mayors, there's some confusion in the paperwork, so I ask you to please introduce yourself and your city too, because I think I got it wrong when you came up stage, so everyone in the audience knows who you are.
Okay, Marco Doria, Mayor of Genoa, Italy. Well, as a mayor, mayors, we have to face with the same questions, and we have to manage them in specific ways according to our context. So I stress three key issues and some key words. First, resilience. In our Paris Action Plan, we can read, we will assess the long-term impact of infrastructure investment in urban areas. In the past, many local administrators didn't do that. So my town, for instance, is many small rivers of my town are covered by streets and buildings, and so to give safety to the citizens, we have to going on, and we are doing that with a great program of public works to direct water in a safer way under the streets of the city. So resilience in our context is one of the main questions. Second question, public services. We can ensure access to infrastructure and public services in a city of Western Europe. The problem for us is the efficiency of our public services. So how to manage with private companies or public companies or with sort of partnership between private and public subjects. And this is one of our crucial constrained by even European rules of competition and how to put together competition with public interest. Third issue is public spaces in the city. So we have approved our urban plan 1 year ago, and in this plan we have the idea to guarantee some great public spaces in each great zone of the town, and even small spaces for community life. This is the third important point, and in our urban plan, to go back to the first point of the resilience, we have fixed some principle of no more soil consumption. So we are not in a phase of quantitative growth, but we have to control the equilibrium between economy and society and environment. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hereta. I'm from Tel Aviv, Israel. And when we talk about inclusion in Tel Aviv, we have a simple formula. We give the affluent children great services, and we give the less affluent twice as much. We define several neighborhoods where the average family income is low, and we doubled the regular investment in those areas in all fields. Twice as much investments in parks, twice as much investments in infrastructure, twice as much investments in community centers, in welfare and school programs, and this year we expand our efforts to additional educational program. The great educator Janos Korczak once said that to fix the world, you must fix education. This year, we have a new type of school day that is much longer and much more comprehensive. We give the children extra classes and meals to achieve 2 goals. The children get twice, the children get classes and upgrade, and the family is upgrading its family financial standing. And this is how we actually practice our inclusive growth. Our municipality is doing well financially, and we invest back in the residents that need this investment most. Thank you.
Merci. Bon, avant tout, je dois bien remercier cette opportunité d'être ici avec vous en discutant des plus importants, je crois, problèmes et questions de notre présent et surtout, je crois, de notre avenir. Je suis le maire de Sintra, c'est une petite ville, c'est patrimoine mondial, mais je suis aussi le président de la région, et ça, c'est la deuxième avec de plus population du pays. Nous avons plus de 400 000 personnes dans une superficie de 325 km². Alors nous avons beaucoup de problèmes. Nous avons 38 nationalités, nous sommes obligés de travailler avec tous ces nationalités, intégrer les gens, et vraiment, jusqu'au moment, nous avons réussi de faire et de vivre en paix. Et ça, je crois que c'est très important. Notre politique, dès le premier jour, nous avons un compromis avec la croissance inclusive, au développement inclusif, et c'est pour ça que nous sommes à New York et nous avons signé la déclaration de New York. Nous croyons vraiment que la solidarité, c'est un problème, c'est une question qui doit tempérer la compétitivité basée surtout dans le profit. Et c'est pour ça que dans Sintra, dès le premier jour, nous avons ce compromis. Nous croyons que la meilleure façon de faire la politique sociale et la solidarité, c'est de créer des emplois. Et c'est pour ça que nous avons travaillé avec les investisseurs, publics et privés, en ordre de maintenir l'investissement qui est là et de faire l'attraction de nouveaux investissements. Mais nous croyons aussi que les politiques d'emploi, elles ont des effets à moyen et à long terme. Et dans ce décalage de temps, on doit faire la solidarité. Et c'est pour ça que nous avons augmenté nos budgets d'une façon très considérable pour faire beaucoup de projets. En commençant l'éducation, alors dans l'éducation, tous les gens qui ont le salaire minimal, ils ont des 3 repas gratuits, ils ont des transports gratuits. Nous avons le taxi social, la pharmacie sociale, et surtout nous avons un projet que je dois bien partager avec vous parce que nous sommes très fiers de ce projet qui s'appelle Sintra Inclus. Et ce projet dit que nous travaillons avec les jeunes gens handicapés, nous faisons sa formation et après nous trouvons des emplois, n'est-ce pas? Et ça c'est très intéressant pour les gens parce que nous sommes aussi la municipalité plus jeune du pays, nous avons 70 000 jeunes et ça c'est une lourde responsabilité. Merci.
Thank you all. Thank the mayors, please. Onward. The mayor of Cape Town, I have this idea that all the mayors are disappearing to some mayor party that I want to be at, where they get to continue talking about the things that we've just touched on briefly. The mayor of Cape Town asked a really good question. What are you, the nation states, doing? What are you, national ministries, doing? And we have the answer, at least in one case, in the person of Ambassador Daniel Yohannes, who has established a knowledge platform and has really pushed this OECD Inclusive Cities effort along with partners. And so I'd like to invite him to share a little bit about the work that he sees going forward.
Mayors, ambassadors, friends, glad to be here. In 2013, President Obama called rising inequality the defining challenge of our time. His words were met by some with surprise, even skepticism. Today, they are undeniable. Ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing in very striking terms the impact of inequality in countries around the world. Many people feel left behind by the global economy, and they are making a lot of noises. We must listen and respond, but how? I believe we need to look to the example of climate change. Like climate change, rising inequality is a complex global challenge that requires a fundamental shift in the way we think about and pursue economic growth. In the case of the climate movement, cities, NGOs, and businesses took the lead in policy experimentation and advocacy. They laid the groundwork for action at a national level. They can do the same on inequality. They can and must lead a global movement for inclusive economic growth. You, the mayors, are on the front lines of this battle. Just as carbon emissions are concentrated in cities, inequality tends to be higher in urban areas. You drove the global policy agenda on climate, and you can drive the agenda on inclusive growth. That's why we encouraged and supported the creation of the Coalition of Champion Mayors for Inclusive Growth. Your leadership is critical in 2 reasons. First, you can bring inclusive growth down to a practical level. You can help figure out which policies actually create inclusive growth. Second, you can help change the narrative. Ladies and gentlemen, inequality is dividing us. It is pushing people to look for scapegoats, such as immigrants and corporations, when these groups are actually critical to inclusive growth. We need to do a better job of educating the public about the root causes of inequality and how they can be addressed. And this is where your advocacy and your leadership can make all the difference. To support your work, of course, the United States Department of State is making a significant investment in sponsoring the development of a special web platform for inclusive growth. The platform will do 2 different things. First, it would allow you, the champion mayors, to share information and ideas privately to keep the conversation going between meetings. Second, it will highlight your leadership to the public and to help educate them about how we can all work together to curb rising inequality. In the month ahead, the OCDE will be consulting with you to ensure that the web platform is developed to suit your needs. I should also mention that we have been inspired by the Champion Mayors Network, that we are working to adapt it to the private sector. In fact, we launched the OCDE initiative on business and inclusive growth last week, and we look forward to building synergies with your efforts. In closing, I want to congratulate all of the members and partners of the Inclusive Cities Champion, particularly our host city, Paris, and Mayor Hidalgo. I want to thank the OCDE team that worked so hard on its development, Secretary Angel Gurría, Chief of Staff Gabriela Ramos. I also want to thank my own inclusive growth team of the U.S. mission at the OCDE. Berg Hogan, can you stand up, Bird? Cyprian Bachelor, and Jeanette Leno. Thank you so much for making this to happen. Let's give them a big round of applause. I'm also extremely proud and honored to have supported this initiative, and I look forward for our collective success in the future. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Ambassador Yohannes. If you didn't notice, some diplomats stay in the shadows. Mayors don't. I apologize that we didn't have you on one of the panels. So, Mayor Abdel Malik from the city of Tevra Zena, we'd love to hear briefly from you. You can comment on an observation from a previous mayor, something Ambassador Yohannes just observed, or give us an example briefly from your own city.
Merci. Vous savez, il y a un adage chez moi qui dit que le dernier est toujours le plus aimé. Donc, je considère que je suis la plus aimée, alors. L'originalité dans notre processus que nous avons engagé pour nos villes comme villes inclusives, c'est que l'approche est désormais axée sur les personnes. Et ça, c'est quelque chose d'extrêmement important. Nous nous sommes accordés ici que les villes sont à la fois un lieu privilégié pour nouer des relations, pour établir la diversité, jouir de la richesse de cette diversité, mais aussi elles sont un lieu privilégié pour le racisme, la discrimination, la xénophobie et les inégalités, toute forme d'inégalité. Et je conçois, moi, pour ma part, que la plus cruelle des inégalités, c'est celle qui existe entre hommes et femmes. Je ne le dis pas dans une situation conflictuelle, mais il s'agit tout simplement d'une question de droit et d'efficacité. Donc, je ferme la parenthèse. Donc, pour ma commune, je viens d'un pays qui a connu des années de sécheresse répétées, donc ce qui a occasionné un exode rural vers les centres urbains. Donc, une planification anarchique, une augmentation des populations et des centres de création de bidonvilles, des poches de pauvreté extrême. Ce qui fait qu'au niveau de ma commune, je concilie entre deux segments de population qui sont antagonistes, ils n'ont pas les mêmes préoccupations, ils n'ont pas les mêmes besoins. Et pour concilier entre ces deux segments de population, c'est extrêmement difficile. Donc j'interviens en matière d'éducation justement pour une mise à niveau, pour que les enfants de ces segments de population pauvres puissent aller à l'école, puissent avoir le même niveau, puissent aller même dans des écoles d'excellence. Et je regarde ça sous d'autres angles, l'angle d'une formation professionnelle pour les adolescents, parce que chez moi, les adolescents sont repris dans la famille pour avoir une partie, pour supporter une partie du revenu. Donc souvent, ils vont aller sur les charrettes faire la collecte des ordures. Donc il y a lieu. Donc ma mairie s'est investie pour mettre la main sur ces segments de population que sont les adolescents pour qu'ils aillent faire une formation professionnelle des métiers qui peuvent leur permettre de s'insérer dans la vie active. Mais en plus de ça, je regarde aussi sous un autre angle, c'est l'angle alphabétisation. Parce qu'on se dit que la maman est la première école. Donc on a tendance à l'accompagner, à l'alphabétiser pour qu'elle puisse encadrer l'enfant qui est la nouvelle génération, qui est la génération de relève. Nous intervenons dans plusieurs domaines, mais je n'ai pas voulu que le sommet se passe sans que la mère de Tevrakzé ne parle. Je suis championne. Merci.
Merci. Thank you both. So I think now we're actually going to hear, have a very brief video looking forward to next year. And the mayor of Seoul, who couldn't join us today, but whose deputy mayor is here, Park Won-soon, is going to share with us a video message in which he announces what we should expect from the Champions Mayor in 2017. I think it will be ever so brief.
Mayors of cities around the world who believe that the actions of cities can change the future of humanity. I'm Won-soon Park, Mayor of Seoul, capital of the Republic of Korea. Under a system and structure that fails to distribute wealth fairly, but rather creates ranks and classes that are divisive, the role and leadership of local governments are all the more important. That is why earlier this year, in February, I declared economic democratization in Seoul. This commitment was the first of its kind in Korea, made even before the central government and other local governments. On that day, as Mayor of Seoul, I promised that I would change the rule of the 1%. The accumulated experiences of Seoul will be shared with other cities in Korea, in Asia, and around the world. With this objective, Seoul is planning on hosting the third OECD Inclusive Growth Cities campaign meeting in 2017. And through this, we hope to play an active role in spreading the Inclusive Growth Cities campaign throughout major cities in Asia. Mayors who have gathered in this city of tolerance Paris, the challenges that all of our cities face regarding inequality cannot be solved with the efforts of one city or one country alone. We, as cities, need to take collective actions. Change begins with actions in us, our cities. I look forward to continuing the journey that we have embarked on together, the journey for creating cities in which all people can grow together and share the achievements together. In 2017 in Seoul as well. See you next year in Seoul. Thank you very much.
Ever so soon, we're going to release to the thematic workshops, and I'd just like to make a final note. The 5th page of the Paris Action Plan includes a section entitled A Call to Action to Support Our Efforts. If you look at it, it's addressed to the OECD, the Ford Foundation, and other supporting institutions, many of whom have been on stage today or have joined us. It highlights the need for amplification, for data, for platforms, for best practices, and let's be blunt, for resources. These are uncertain times, and uncertain times in which cities have a responsibility to act not just locally, but increasingly globally. So I urge all in the room, even though it might not be addressed to you, to take it up and consider what you can do to help the cities around you and in which you live. For now, let's one more time thank the mayors. They're some of the most exceptional leaders in the world. It was a great privilege for me to be on stage with them. And then I'll tell you which rooms to go to for your sessions.